We have had so many people say that the courses are getting stale. It feels all so monotonous. It's just the same thing again and again and again. Well, let's go over what we can do to fix that. So with that, let's get into it. This video is brought to you by my own merch. I just dropped my own Wild Runs apparel. I've been really working on it hard and I think it looks pretty cool. I refined a lot of designs. I had some crazy ones in the works, but I think these are classic. They kind of fit every disc golfer. All these generally look professional and they work in every setting. So if you want to grab one, go to wildrunsdiscgolf.com, and it is one of the best ways to support me and this channel. Let's go over why it would be so nice to specifically have courses in the western portion of the US. We currently have Glendoveer going on right now. We have Milo McIver just got back onto the tour, also an amazing course, and we have the OTB Open. Now all these are very awesome, what I believe to be some of the best disc golf on tour, and so I definitely think these particular courses must remain, and they shine light as to why this is just such an amazing part of disc golf that we don't get to see on the eastern portion. But to me it gets so much more interesting when you dive into the more mountainous courses that we have yet to see truly on tour besides a couple of Silver Series events. And just like everyone else, I love to see new courses coming onto tour. It doesn't matter what it is really. Any new course is honestly interesting. But with that said, the main thing lacking from tour is any set of truly intense elevation. Sure, we have like a 300-foot drop on some holes on some events on tour, but that's basically it. We don't have a true mountainous course, which is all over the courses on the western side of the US. And after playing some of these courses, playing courses worldwide, there's just so much variability in disc golf. It doesn't have to be what we kind of perceive it to be on tour. Obviously, like I know you guys have probably had some home courses where you're like, this would be so sick on tour, but for a lot of reasons, mainly competitive, those particular courses probably aren't going to make it on tour. It's these huge courses that have a lot of potential to make championship level courses. But we are always seeing clips of these amazing courses with this like 600-foot drop off from like some course in Colorado or Idaho or Utah. They are always popping up in our feed and it just looks so incredibly epic. I've played a couple of these, but I'm always looking to play more of them because they are so unique, truly different than anything else you really see on tour. And I can definitely say that the pros want this, the fans want this, everybody wants this, but for some reason it is just not being taken into account on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And I'm pretty sure there was a Q Series event at Colorado on the 303 Open, but I don't really count that because the Q Series is not the Pro Tour. It is a totally different thing. So let's move on to what kind of solutions I think we could have. So before we get to the challenges of all these courses, let's talk about the courses themselves. So there are some courses right outside of Salt Lake City that are just amazing. Mainly these are ski resorts that are disc golf courses in the summer months, but man, they are so unique, so fun, and I've yet to play them, but every time I see any clips from them, I'm like, why are we not doing this? It has like 1,000-foot downhill shots, 500-foot uphill shots that are like truly uphill. This is not like a slight incline. It's like you have to hike. There's so much variability. You have the insane altitude that will make your shot totally different than at sea level. And there are two courses, Park City and Solitude, that are only 45 minutes away from the Salt Lake City airport. So it is very, very easily accessible and it could definitely be connected to the West Coast swing. And to go along with that, we could also add back the Blue Mount, which is where the Zootown Open was, which was just amazing. Very similar to these ski resort courses, just insane elevation, discs that fly if you're like 700 feet. It really makes the entire sport feel like you're playing on like a different world. You have so many different shot shapes that you never get to see on tour. And then before we get to the last course, one that I've definitely had on my list, Caliber Disc Golf Course in Sandpoint, Idaho. I think Casey's played here. It is amazing. It is like the blend of wooded, nature, lots of forest, pristine fairways. It's all just like so homemade, and every shot is like a championship level hole. It is not easy by any means, be certainly a great addition to the tour. And again, it could be connected to the Portland events as the event that follows Milo McIver. It certainly has potential there. And then the last one, that this is just kind of like a pipe dream, but man, it would be so cool. We have not seen anything from Lake Tahoe, so Zephyr Cove in Lake Tahoe would be an amazing addition. I know we did have LVC, so that was a Nevada course, but man, if you've ever played Zephyr Cove, which I think a lot of you have, which is crazy because I played it in like 2020, right as I started disc golf, and I was like, oh, this is like a quaint little course. Didn't really think anything of it. And then year after year, I see so many photos of people mentioning this particular course as like their top course of all time. And I think it really goes to show that there's so many different levels of disc golf. We have seen Simon play this, I think, on one of the Jomez documentaries. And with it being only 45 minutes from the Reno airport, again, very accessible. You get some of the best views of the entire US. And one thing I've yet to mention is the reception. I think the reception in Zephyr Cove is probably getting close to like the worst reception you could ever have. And then in addition to this West Coast swing, with all these courses that could definitely fit inside the flow, we also could could just add more courses on the East Coast. Like, it doesn't have to be adding courses on the west side of the US. We could add a lot more on the right side as well, just change it up a little bit. The North Cove was a silver series and it was amazing. It was so cool, so unique, but for whatever reason it got dropped and now it is no longer on tour. I think that particular style of course is very much like these other mountainous courses where it's just so fun to watch. And if it's fun to watch, then it's going to be fun to engage as a newer viewer. And I think that is what is consistently missing from the tour. Every time you look at a shot, can you honestly say this is a cool shot to watch as a new viewer? Probably not. So incorporating these courses that are just landscapes that are cool to watch really adds to the overall feel of what is a good tournament. In addition to this, I think there's another solution that has not been talked about all that often, and that is the notion of having events every other year. We have seen this for the European Open, and if it can be done for the European Open, then why not for these events that are getting less and less reception, such as the DDO, which I believe could probably be dropped every other year, and we would not miss that much. We could actually incorporate these newer events as part of the tour, and then the next year they're not there, and then the following year they come back. I think this cyclical nature would be really, really nice to have, and it would add variety every single year, because let's say you don't have DDO for a year and then it comes back. I think there's a lot more people that are excited to see it. So to just name a few events that I think could probably be dropped every other year and not lose that much: DDO, Waco, Texas States, Music City, and Idlewild. I know this is probably a bit of a hot take, but I truly think there are so many courses that have kind of just fell to the wayside as far as interesting disc golf goes. The only interesting thing is like if there's a storyline where people are really close and they're fighting for a win, or like they make a cool shot, that's probably the most interesting part in the course. It's just kind of like someone you have in the background where it's not really adding anything. And I think every course should add something to the viewing experience. Very much like Glendoveer right now. All these redwoods look so epic. I actually don't know if they're redwoods, but they're really cool trees. They look so cool. Every time I look on coverage, I'm just like, wow, I wish I was there. This is awesome. Every fairway is super pristine. It is just fun to watch. But with that said, let's get to the reality and why this is probably not going to happen. So my first thought is that generally what I've noticed as somebody that has followed the tour, done a lot of filming on tour, is that in general, most things on tour does not change. Anything new on tour is very reluctant, very slow, and very kind of adverse to happen. They're doing the same thing again and again, year after year, and they have gotten into this rhythm where anything in addition just really does not happen. I've noticed it with commentators, with graphics as far as the live coverage goes, with courses, with holes typically not changing, and with their video streaming platform. I feel like it all is just kind of the same thing again and again, even though there's been so much pushback to add features to kind of fix these broken things that are really annoying for a lot of viewers. So many things are just kind of done the same way again and again, and that is not to say that it is easy to fix. Certainly not. I'm sure there are a lot of nuances as to why this is the case, but for so much of the tour year after year, and there really seems to be some amount of pushback to change anything on tour. But as far as courses go, the number one thing is the bidding process. There is a huge amount of effort that goes into placing a bid, whether that be for an Elite Series Plus, a playoff event, and a major. They all have a lot of planning and requirements that must be done per the Disc Golf Pro Tour requirements. And so you may be asking, well, why can't we have somebody like in Utah or Montana place a bid and have their event on tour? Well, there are a lot of stipulations. Generally, the first one being, has there been a huge amount of experience in A tiers? And has that tournament director had a lot of experience in these A tiers? Typically, the answer is yes. With the exception of Paul's courses, generally all these events have had a decade more of A tier experience, as well as the tournament directors also having lots of experience. AKA Nate Heinel kind of being the GOAT. He is able to get a lot more events on tour because he has such a trusted name and can get things done. There are a lot of stipulations as far as logistics. First one being parking. There has to be a good amount of parking for anything like a major. You have to have the ability to shuttle people to the event in mass. And to go along with that, you have to have good reception. I don't know how they gauge this. They have a lot of portable cell towers, I've noticed. I saw this at Champions Cup, and so hopefully this would allow some courses that are kind of like more out there to get better reception to become feasible to be on tour, but it is very hard to gauge what they consider good enough reception to be on tour. And then lastly, it just has to have ease of access as far as getting gear and camera crew to the event. It doesn't really have to be easy to get to as far as like being a person, because let's say you do have an event in the middle of Emporia. Honestly, it's not that convenient because it's not close to a major city, so I don't think they prioritize that nearly as much as just being easy to film, easy to get reception, in a championship level layout. And another thing that I forgot to mention about the tournament director is that you are doing this with lots of planning, probably no joke, hundreds of hours of planning, and you will probably not make a profit from this entire thing. It is purely out of just getting your event on tour. And so it makes it very hard to want to have an event be on tour when you know that you're probably not going to make all that much money, if anything at all. And then in addition to that, the tour typically just doesn't like to add events. I don't know if it's like a scheduling conflict. I don't know if it's like not enough financial incentive to add more events, but they seem very strict on their current layout of events. Personally, I think having a couple more events that are scattered throughout the US, not just kind of the eastern side, would be very interesting and very fun to watch. And if pros just didn't go to every event, I think that's fine. I think that is totally acceptable, and I think it is totally fine to have that layout. That is how the PGA Tour does it, and it certainly seems to work for them. And I think incorporating these more mountainous Western courses along with maybe some Canadian courses could really add so much value to the tour and make it all more cohesive to what true disc golf is like. It is not the same thing again and again, year after year. There is a lot of variability. Generally, most pros like doing something different every year. It doesn't have to be the same thing again and again, and the monotony is only going to drive the tour to be more and more stale. So sure, it may not be easy, it may not be the best reception on some events, but I think that is a trade-off that is well worth having, and it seems to be a topic that just keeps popping up again and again, year after year. So with that, what do you guys think? Do you have strong opinions about adding new events to the tour, dropping some other events, and do you think the tour should just stay the same year after year? I'd love to know. So with that, be sure to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.